They say in some of the big standardized studies for adults, when they measure rates of happiness, that as much as we as parents love our children and love having children with us, and we probably loved hearing the children's sermon and the kids singing just now too, at least in terms of sociological studies, they say there are two different peaks of happiness for adults. The first peak is before the children are born, and the second peak is just after they leave the home. It's what it says in the studies. I think there is a true empty nest syndrome too, but maybe it's because of the stress and everything else that happens and all the juggling, but there's so many joys too when we are pleased with our children, and I actually am very pleased with my children too, and I'm very glad they're in our home and in our home right now. Lauren and Brandon are right over here. Lauren just started chorus this year for Mabry. She had been in chorus before, but this year she had her very first ever solo, and it was over at the Lassiter High School auditorium. And that was great. I was really pleased with that. And Brandon just started percussion in 6th grade over at Mabry Middle. And at least as far as right now, he is first chair doing the bells and drums and all with that and percussion. So I'm definitely pleased with that. But if I looked at some of the more epic things they've accomplished so far in their life, if there's like this one thing that kind of standing out, and maybe for me as a former athlete too in swimming, for Brandon, I look at Mexico. Mexico is the name of his soccer team in the Roswell Area Recreational League, just kind of a little more relaxed league for young boys for soccer. But in this particular league, it was Ireland. Ireland was like the Alabama of soccer. Totally undefeated, defending champions, undefeated for the next year too. And they had already beaten Mexico last year and this year. And so their Mexico came for the championship. And the star player on Ireland came down and scored early on, went all the way across the field, right, and scored almost right away. Then Mexico came, Brandon's team came and scored back. It was tied 1-1. Now, Brandon's not the most prolific dribbler or scorer on the team, but he's a solid guy in the middle of that, and he was playing defense. Same star comes back again, gets past other guys, gets past the half-field mark. There's Brandon playing defense. And I could see just for a fraction of a second him just wondering and hesitating, because this guy is a whole head taller than Brandon too, right? So I could see him wondering and hesitating for just a second there. And then he just goes and lunges in and runs and gets the timing just perfect to kick that ball away down the field. And they would eventually come back in to score. And Mexico ended up scoring again and again, and ended up being 5-1. Ireland would not score again that whole game. And so, so pleased there for Brandon. And then for Lauren, I think if there's an athletic thing for her, it was back in swimming. Now this also is just a little local thing. And of course, I've been in, at least for master swimming, the Pan American Games, World Championships, but as dad, a little Martin's Landing community, dolphin swim team, and my daughter on the B relay, this was the big thing. The B relay is not quite, and I've been on B relays before too, Lauren. When I was a very little kid, I didn't even make the relay at all, so I remember that. But the A relays had the strongest swimmers on them, and they were in the middle of the pool. And the B relays were the secondary ones, and ours was on one outside lane, and their team was on another outside lane. It was pouring down rain. Hardly any adults were even coming out anymore. We were all covered up, but the referee kept the meet going to just try to get it done. And this was the medley relay, and one of my strong strokes is butterfly. And Lauren, when she would get the rhythm right, would have a strong butterfly and a strong underwater dolphin. And so she just got that rhythm right in that particular race. Now, it was the B relay though, so when the breaststroker was coming in, they were definitely behind. But there she came in, dolphining, and I'm cheering with the pouring down rain at the end of all the way to the end of the pool there, and she turns and comes in and finishes either right at the same or just barely ahead. And our freestyler comes in and actually first over both of the A teams. And our freestyler, inspired in the middle of that pouring down rain, held them off and touched first. And that little B relay on the outside lane won for our team, the Martin's Landing Dolphins. And Lauren actually scored, and her relay actually scored in that event. And so, but that's not the reason I'm most pleased with my children, either one of those things. I was actually pleased with them the day they were born. And I was pleased with them even in the womb as I would sing to them and read to them. I'm pleased with them because They're my children. And if there's a reason why I'm most pleased with them, it's for who they are, not just the things that they have done, but the children and the children of God that they are. That's why I'm really pleased with them. Now, having said that, and I'm sure that sounds really sweet, but at the same time, I am not a perfect dad. Dina's not a perfect mom, and they are not perfect kids. But in those good and best days, there is that sense of that abiding love and being pleased with who they are. And that so much reminds me, we just have a little bit of how we do this in life, but of the incredible love of God and the love of Father for Son. And we hear in Luke today that naming and claiming from God in heaven, from that voice of heaven saying at the baptism of Jesus, "You are my Son, the beloved. With you I am well pleased." Now, what is it, what is it that God the Father was so pleased about with his Son? And as we look back in Luke for today's gospel, was it because Jesus had the miracles, like the wedding at Cana or the feeding of the 5,000? Norma says, no, that wasn't it. Was it healing of a leper or the person with the withered hand? Or maybe healing the blind? Was that it? Was it the fact that Jesus stayed, even when all would turn against him, and stayed on that road of self-sacrifice all the way to the cross? Is that why the Father was so pleased? Well, if we look back in this Gospel of Luke, we find something kind of interesting. And each of the accounts has something different. In the Gospel of John, there's not even a baptism account, per se. In the Gospel of Luke, it's in bodily form that the Spirit descends. In the Gospel of Luke, we don't even hear about the waters specifically. In Matthew and Luke, we hear specifically it's in the Jordan that he's baptized. But here we also have Jesus already having been baptized and even praying too. So he may be on the shore somewhere, probably somewhere on dry land when all this happens with the Spirit. And is saying that you are my Son, the beloved, with you I am well pleased. But what else has happened in Luke then? What are the great things Jesus has done? This baptism comes in Luke chapter 3. And all we have so far with Jesus is the Lucan version of the Christmas story with his birth and a little small account of Jesus, the boy in the temple. That's it. And there is good news in that too for us, because even with God the Father, the Son is beloved. The Son is claimed and named, not just for all the things that he has done, but for who he is. He's not done any of those things yet as an adult. Already, he is beloved. Already, his Father is pleased with who he is. That's grace. That's God's freely given love. And that's an innate need we all have too. It is good for us to do good works. It is good for us to have accomplishments and achievements, and those help build us up. It helps us to fulfill our sense of call as well. But in addition to all that which is good, we have an innate need as humans, whether we admit it or not. Most of us will readily admit this, that we need to be loved. And we need to be loved for who we are, apart from what we do, apart from our achievements, just to be loved for the person and child of God that we are. And today, we hear that love from a father to his son, lifting him up before any of these things are even done, saying, I love you, my son, for who you are. I name you and claim you as my own. And friends in Christ, that happened in Jesus' baptism, and that also happens in our baptisms. Even before we have done the very first thing for those of us as babes who are baptized, and even for the rest of us, it begins all over anew in life from that very moment. We are named and claimed and called beloved and called God's children forever in our baptisms, in our lives. So why does it matter? It is this great gift of grace that we can remember that we are loved not just for the things that we do, but we are loved by God through who we are as God's children. We are beloved. So let's unpack this word, beloved, a little bit, literally the actual word itself, because there's something to this word, beloved. If you look in the very middle of the word beloved, you have the word love, Love. And that is the center, that is the heart, that is the purpose. God is love, we hear in 1 John. The whole gift of God's Son, the whole gift of this life, the whole gift of all of this is love. So it makes sense that love is in the center. That is a gift to us. And then if we separate out the word a little bit more, there's another different word in there. What's the other different word in there? A full word. It's a little short one. Be. B-E at the beginning. Be love. So may we, in response to that love we are given, may we be love as the baptized children of God, reaching out to all others in the world to be that love that we were first given. But there's another little ending too that we also need, because all of love and everything is about relationship, and relationship is about a giving and a taking, a giving and a receiving. And we also have that innate need to be loved. And that is the final part of that, to receive that initial, wonderful, beautiful gift of love, to be that love, and then with those others to be loved as well. This is not just our innate desire. It is the gift of God through His Son and His baptism, and the gift given to each of us and ours too, that we are named and claimed as loved children of God forever. So may the good news of God's love, the love of a father for a son, the love of God the Father for us too, in our baptisms, in our lives, may that be our foundation, our assurance, our security, and our strength as we strive to be the children of God that we are, and to live out the callings of which we've been called, knowing that the Son of God and we, the sheep of His pasture, are truly, deeply beloved. Amen.